Hello and welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host Neil Magnuson. This is the show where we talk about truth, hope, and change. And the truth is, I seriously hope that we're going to be able to achieve some of the changes that we desperately need in this world. On the show today, I've got 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca joining us as usual for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will be here to update his situation on his journey for medical freedom for cannabis users. And we'll be revisiting the RV, the reefer van, where the CSP and the Healing Wave are continuing to do their work from a curb. Unfortunately, I have to announce that we've lost another dear friend of ours. Alan Sayers was a local artist, a very liked person, a wonderful guy. And he passed away on Thursday, and I just learned today that he died of fentanyl. And that is absolutely shocking news. I've spoke with close friends of Alan's, and nobody had a clue that he was dabbling in things that would include fentanyl. And it's just another horrible example of how we really need to address this situation that's going on with people using such things, and be very aware of what's going on. And this epidemic that kills over 5 people a day in British Columbia, and has been doing that for a long time, is extremely serious. And that's the journey we're on, is to try to provide cannabis as an option for people so that they won't use such things. But there still is a large number of people crossing all demographics that are using these substances, and we lost another to the fentanyl epidemic. So Alan, rest in peace, my brother. You were a wonderful human being, and you'll live on for a long, long time. He's got many of these pencil sketches that he's done over the years of many of the local activists, and so much more. So it was just a real big shock to find out that he had passed away, and a much larger shock to find out today that it was due to fentanyl. So there you go. The truth is that cannabis is one of the most beneficial commodities found in nature, and one of the safest when it comes to its ability to be misused or fatally overdosed on. The truth is, cannabis should never have been prohibited in the first place. A crime is intentionally causing harm to others in significant ways, and that public servants would be able to instate a law where it's a criminal offense to have possession of flowers, this particular flower especially, but any flower, is absolutely ludicrous, and it shows how far we've come in having our freedom perverted and our rights taken away from us. The truth is that cannabis, in fact, should have been encouraged by our public servants and available in all of its forms and subsidized for those who need it. I see today that the provincial government in British Columbia is increasing the amount of money given to people on disability by $175. Well, they should also be allowed to access cannabis for whatever purposes they want it for, because that would also save us a whole lot of money, especially on prescription medication, but on so much more as people's health would benefit. Because the truth is that cannabis is a supplement to our endocannabinoid system, the systems that we have within our own bodies that create the same chemistry as is the cannabinoids, and that system is there to maintain balance and homeostasis over all of the other systems in the human body. And cannabis is absolutely medical, it's a vitamin, it's, like I say, a supplement to that system which is in charge of all of the other systems in the human body. So to have that prohibited is a gross, disgusting violation of our natural rights, to say the least. But whatever a human being wants to use something for, that's their right. As long as you're not hurting someone else, you get to do what you want. Most people aren't trying to hurt themselves. I mean, some people are willing to risk that. We've got people that train to get into a boxing ring and exchange punches with other professional fighters. We've got people that decide to strap a couple of slidey things on their feet and go up to the top of a snow-covered mountain and take a chance on hitting a tree or whatever else on the way down, and many people have. Lots of broken legs and arms out of that particular human endeavor. There's numerous things that we do, and almost all of them carry risk. But whatever you want to do as a human being, risky though it may be, I mean, climbing mountains or going into deep tunnels or scuba diving or racing cars, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And people get harmed in these pursuits all the time. People die in these pursuits all the time. And it's nobody's business but theirs. I mean, if that's what they decide they want to do for themselves, then they get to go and do that. There's regulations involved in some of the things that you might want to do, because, like I say, people aren't trying to hurt themselves. They may be risking harm, but they're not trying to kill themselves. They're not trying to harm themselves in most cases. I'm not talking about those cases where that's going on. There is some mental health issues where there's some of that going on, but I'm not talking about mental health issues. I'm talking about people, ordinary, normal people that decide that they want to thrill, that decide that they want to challenge, decide that they want to compete. They decide that they want to do things that involve risks and risk of death amongst more serious things, because there's more serious things than death. Once you're dead, you're gone. You're not in any pain. But I mean, there's things that can cause you to be disabled for life, and yet people do these things, and in many ways they're encouraged to do these things as we try to break records and set new levels of what humans can accomplish, and throw caution to the wind and throw our bodies into what we're doing, and we risk these things, and it's all a personal choice. And it's never been the role of government, or never should have been the role of government, to get involved with people's personal choices that don't affect and harm other people. It just shouldn't be within their realm, mostly because it's none of their business. I mean, their business is just trying to tell us the truth about things, provide the services that we need, make sure we have roads that are maintained, and there's education for our children, and there's some sort of healthcare provisions, and there's mostly governments are about trying to make sure that those people that are struggling in life, that are less advantaged than other people, don't suffer unduly as a result of that. That we as a society of free people want our public servants to try to make sure that nobody gets left behind if possible, and that we do it in very compassionate ways. But here's our government getting involved with our recreational choices with respect to what things we might want to consume in our body. I mean, the way that happened is very crazy if you go back and you look at the history of it all. Here in North America, us here in Canada with our separation from the UK and our Charter of Rights, but in the United States with their separation from the countries they came from in Europe, when I'm talking about the European settlers of the United States, I mean, they came up with fundamentals that spoke to the idea of freedom and what it meant to be free. And that was very important, because they were coming here because they felt they weren't free where they were, and they were oppressed. So they put together founding documents that spoke to that. Like, we find these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights to the pursuit of their own happiness and liberty. And so these are foundational truths that provide us with what are natural rights. And natural rights are not rights that are given to us by others, because there really are no others that can give us rights. There's everybody else that needs to respect our rights. But as far as the natural rights that we have, they're natural because they're given by nature. They're not given by people. And in fact, like I say, there's no one that can give it to you in a real, sane, reasonable world where you are born to become your own personal master in a free domain that includes public servants, people that we collectively pay money to provide services for us and to keep us safe where possible. But in that reasonable world, you get to be a free human being and do as you choose unless you're harming someone else. And so that's a natural right. There is, you see, all these other people that you might think are there to perhaps give you rights, or that have the ability to give and take away rights, are no different than you. They're no different than any of us that were born into this world, that had to navigate through that time period of where we are slave to the demands of the people that are looking after us, the people that have brought us into this world, in most cases, our guardians, but mostly our parents, who do get to tell us that we have to do stuff we don't want to do, and we can't do some things that we want. But there's a time that comes for all of us where we rise above that. We get to the point where we say, thank you, I appreciate what you tried to teach me. I don't necessarily share all of your values, Mom and Dad, but I'm going to go out there and be my own person now. And we're all just that. And so that no one of us that is that gets to go to another one of us that is that and says, hey, I'm in charge of you, and I'm going to tell you what you can do and what you can't do. That's exactly what they can't do. That's exactly what goes against those natural rights that you have. That once you've risen out of that state where you have guardians and parents telling you to do stuff you don't want to do, that nobody again ever gets to tell you that. That's the supposed beauty of life. That's what lies on the other side of that tyranny that we all go through, that we call Mom and Dad. Some worse than others. But when you get outside of that, or on the other side of that, there's supposed to be freedom. And we find out that there's not freedom, even though here we are at this point in history where we live in a country where we give lip service to being free. We are told by our public servants, or those people that think they're in authority over us, that this is a free country. All we have to do is obey, and we get to be free. And no, that's not how that's supposed to work. All we have to do to be free is not harm anybody else in any significant way. Don't be interfering with other people and their freedom in harmful, significant ways, and nobody should ever bother you. None of these public servants of ours, none of the peace officers that we pay to protect our freedoms should be able to come and give you a hard time because you are not hurting anybody, but you're contravening some law that they've put in place there. And that's just wrong and needs to be addressed, because unless you're actually hurting somebody, unless there's significant damage being done, and it's very demonstrable that that's happening, then there is no right of anybody to interfere with you and what you're doing. And yet we have now evolved ourselves into a world where we quite easily accept that our public servants get to detain us and search us and penalize us for things where we had no intent to harm anybody, we didn't harm anybody, there's no damage done. And there's obviously no better example of that than the attempt to prohibit cannabis. Cannabis, as I mentioned earlier, the truth is it's one of the most beneficial commodities found in nature, and one of the safest, least harmful, least able to be misused, certainly not able to be fatally misused compared with everything else in our environment. I mean, we live in a world where there's alcohol, right? And alcohol, although for a time they tried to prohibit it for, stated reasons that it was causing all this significant damage one to another when people were drinking, even though you really go back and look at the history of it, and although that was the reasons given by the U.S. Congress to outlaw alcohol for that time period, behind the scenes, the real reason was because it was about to compete with the Rockefellers' fossil fuels and the Rockefellers' medicines, and so that was the real impetus behind Prohibition. But I mean, alcohol statistically causes us a whole lot of problems. I mean, individually, certain people at certain times can enjoy alcohol and it's just fine and nobody's harmed. Some people, enjoy too much alcohol and harm themselves, but nobody's harmed. Alcohol is one of those issues where it became so prevalent, and statistically there were so many problems associated with it that there was some justification for being able to prohibit it. But that didn't last very long, because the prohibition caused way more problems than did the alcohol itself. Alcohol didn't go away, of course. If you we now know all of this about Prohibition. I mean, maybe we can give them the benefit of the doubt that they were naive about it at the time. But what we've learned about Prohibition is that there's all these unintended consequences that happen as a result when you try to prohibit things. In the case of alcohol, the demand skyrocketed when it became prohibited, and all people were up in arms about their inability to access it. You were allowed to have it, you could make it for yourself, but you weren't allowed to sell it, you weren't allowed to cross state lines with it. But there was justification for that, but still, look what happened, all these unintended consequences. So the demand for alcohol, that absolutely means there's going to be a supply. I mean, supply and demand, those are real laws that we can't really fuck with. And sorry, Annie Barbie, but there's going to be a huge supply if there's a huge demand, and that's just going to happen. And whatever it takes to make that happen, whatever the price needs to be to make sure that everybody gets paid off down the road, or you can hire the enforcers that you need, or you can do what it takes to smuggle it, or you can pay off the different officials, or whatever it takes. They will find a way. If there's a demand, there will be a supply. And as soon as a government tries to prohibit something, there's a huge increase in demand, and especially amongst vulnerable populations, young people, rebellious people, those sorts of people. And so prohibition, for that reason alone, should never be implemented. It's not the role of government to prohibit things like substances that can be harmful if misused, and it certainly doesn't do the right thing. The violence that comes along with providing alcohol when it's prohibited is so extreme, and we're still experiencing that today. Obviously, prohibition hasn't gone away. They say they've legalized cannabis, and that's highly debatable, and in fact, they certainly haven't legalized it the way that we've been asking for it to be legalized, where there's no more penalties for cannabis. But every single gangland killing that takes place in our streets costs us a minimum of $1 million just in investigative costs. I mean, the costs are huge all the way around. There's innocent people that die sometimes. There's the fallout from prohibition is so huge that it should have long ago been abandoned because of that. And yet here we are with governments that still think it's in somebody's interest to prohibit things and all the problems that ensue from that. And that takes us right to the current epidemic of overdose deaths. There are 5.3 people every day in British Columbia dying, but there's way more than that when you consider all the different jurisdictions in North America and around the world where opioids take their toll. Now here in these times we have an opium supply that for some reason has been poisoned with fentanyl, which is an opioid itself, and it's 100 times more powerful than heroin, which is like 100 times more powerful than opium. And then there's carfentanil, which is now 200 times more powerful than fentanyl. And there's all these powerful opioids that have somehow poisoned the illegal opioid supply. I still would like to know in the end how that's happening and how that continues to happen, because whose agenda is that serving? Why is this continuing on for years and years and years? How is it that we're not able to stop this? I'm pretty sure that a drug dealer isn't trying to kill his drug buyer. That doesn't make any sense. So that's a whole other issue. But it's government involvement that drives all of that. 4:19, you got a minute to roll them, and I got a minute to finish my rant. Prohibition is what drives the opioid crisis. That's the only reason that there's people selling opioids on the street corners, is because they're not able to get it if they need it from somewhere else. And all of the lies that have been told, and all the stigma that's been created, and all the scapegoating that's happened, and all of these things are happening because of government policies. And we really need to revisit all of that and think about what these public servants should be doing. Their role is in protecting people, in telling us the truth. The truth is they should be telling us the truth. That's what we want. But instead, we're still getting lies. We're still getting reefer madness lies. We're still getting artificially inflated prices for a commodity that's easy for anybody to grow. But you're not allowed to grow it at only 4 plants, and any more than that, and now you might be going to jail or losing your home. And all of these policies of prohibition are driving death, they're driving poverty, they're driving addiction, they're driving all of these problems that we're alluding to, plus many, many more that I haven't even mentioned. Disrespect for police and laws, and it goes on and on and on. So we really need to think hard about all of that and revisit all of that. And I got a lot more to say about a lot of different other things, and that's what we're going to do on this show. But for now, we're going to take the 4:20 break, because that's an important thing to do, to take pause, to include a little bit of humor and magical vapors into your thought processes. And I believe it's 4:20, and I believe Glenn Wells is here to join us for the 4:20 session. How you doing, Glenn?
Good. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. CannaMatch.ca. I got a hat I'm going to wear. I got some friends of mine that have moved into this business, and
I was wearing a sweatshirt, and they saw that, and they sent me a care package. So
nice.
we got some
and they
stuff
sent me
for
a hat.
smoke. Yeah, okay, I got a hat too. I don't wear hats very much, but no. And they sent us a nice GB.
All right.
From ICC, which is Interior Cannabis Collective. They are a reputable shop that you can get online. They're not a shop, just online. And yeah, they sent us a nice doobie that we could smoke today. And I got a t-shirt and some live resin and some shatter and some zombie kush.
Careful, fire's dangerous.
So Ron McNabb is saying that today in Winnipeg they announced that they're looking into setting limits on medical grows in Manitoba.
This is extremely sticky. What's going on?
Oh, that's a good one, is it?
Oh, holy smokes.
It's
sticky all over it. Wow.
It's good.
What the hell?
Yeah. They put some extra love on it, I guess.
I think they did too.
Oh,
Yeah, I know
good.
Health Canada is worried about cannabis being diverted from medical grows into the illegal market that competes with their non-medical model.
Yeah.
And screw you, Health Canada.
Yeah.
There's not enough cannabis in the world. It's already way too high priced for daily users, for people who need it on a regular basis. And so you need to allow for as much diversion to people as possible. The only reason it's being diverted is because there's a demand for it. It's not the role of Health Canada, it's not the role of Canadian public servants to get in the way of people's demands. It's there to facilitate demands. If there's problems that arise, there can be regulations applied that are reasonable and don't interfere with our human rights.
Yep.
But they're not in the business of impeding business, of getting in the way of commerce, of getting in the way of people that want to supply something to people that want to have something. People want something, they get to have it. It's a free country. As long as they're not hurting anybody else with it, it ain't none of the government's business.
Exactly. That's what we say week after week.
Week after week. You can see I'm getting a little bit passionate about it.
Just a little bit.
It's been bugging me for a while. It's like, is it ever going to stop?
This is tasty.
It's very tasty.
It's a little saggy, too.
It's very saggy. It's got fire on the end of it.
It needs a female joint to
Should
straighten it out.
should we go get a public servant to help us to make sure we stay safe
can
because
lift
there's
it up,
fire on the end of this?
They can hold it up for us.
We could burn ourselves.
Screw you. Yes, Doug. That's what Doug says. Screw you, Health Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
right.
fuck's sakes, what the hell?
And fuck the CSU.
And you know what you should all be
Community
doing
service.
is you should be calling Health Canada. Everybody that even if you're not in Canada, why don't you call Health Canada?
Yeah.
And tell them nicely that they're really killing people and providing access to cannabis would be a lifesaver for so many people.
And don't use foul words because it says right on when you call them that if you have any foul words, they're going to hang up on you. So like you said, do it
even
nice
talking
thing.
to my Auntie Barbie.
Well, when they take almost 2
I
years
love you,
to renew
anybody.
your application, that's crazy, right? First they said it was because of COVID, and then because of COVID they didn't get to my application in time, so the criminal record search that they do was only good for 90 days, so that wasn't good anymore. We had to do that again. So it's almost been 2 years. Now everything's downloaded. Now we're just
But
waiting
if
for-
you walk into your doctor's office and you're like, oh, shit, doc, I threw my back out or something, it really hurts.
Yeah.
They'll let you go down to the corner drugstore within about 45 minutes and get yourself a whole whack of pills that can kill your ass.
Exactly, yeah. For free. Because
Without
your
any
government
criminal
will pay for it.
Without any criminal record check.
Don't need ID.
No time delay.
No.
You
just
don't
gotta
have to
tell them
order
your
it through the
birthday.
mail from somebody. They got tons of that shit. It'll kill you real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can have that easy.
Synthetic shit.
Easy.
Yeah.
They even got stuff that'll kill you real good that you don't even have to go through the doctor's prescription
No, they
for.
even got-
You can walk right into drugstores.
They got fake cannabis,
They got
too.
them stores called drugstores all over the place. And you can walk into those stores and you can buy drugs there.
Yeah.
You can buy drugs that'll kill you real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Just take a couple of those things and you can smoke a couple of joints and you're okay.
Such an
Thank you,
insane
Interior
world.
Cannabis.
Let me do this now.
Oh, how's Aerofresh doing for you in the van? Is it still working?
I don't use it in the
Oh,
I told you.
I saw it in there.
Yeah, we still keep it in there. Look, we have one in there, but I don't use it anymore because we want the van to smell
Yes,
like weed.
Aerofresh.ca.
And that shit doesn't help.
No, but it
If
does
you
work.
if you want your vehicle to smell like weed, don't be using
Yeah.
Aerofresh.
But if you don't want it to smell like weed, which Aerofresh was made for, check out Aerofresh.ca
Yeah,
because
there's
it
that
works.
too.
Because he doesn't even want it in his van anymore.
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
We got a reputation to maintain out there in the van.
Oh,
So
what do we got?
This is from John Murray.
Oh, yes.
You know, John does some excellent investigative work there. And so who wants to be a legal cannabis retailer? You want to sell weed with the government's permission? This is all the costs that you have to be involved in just to get started. They're required to have a municipal business license, which here in Vancouver, that comes to $33,958. That was in 2020 to get a 1-year municipal business license to sell non-medical cannabis. $30,000 for the annual renewable fee, and the renewable tab for a cannabis retailer is a hefty $1,500. So I'm not sure what that means for the Oh, I see. So if you have got permission to be a compassion club, which was also part of Vancouver's regulations, then it wasn't $30,000 a year. Then it was only $1,500 for a 1-year thing as well. The annual fee for a liquor store, by the way, is $429.
That's it.
Period.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
$429. It's less than that to have a small pharmacy, a drugstore.
Oh, my.
But if you want to sell non-medical flowers, cannabis flowers, then this is what it's going to cost.
Here's a question. So, Shoppers Drug Mart is selling weed.
Yep.
So do they have to pay that $30,000 one, or do they fall fall under their pharmacy one?
No, they'd be under maybe. I don't know.
See, that's a question.
See, the $30,000 is a Vancouver fee, right? Okay, so that's for the municipality of Vancouver. I don't know that there's many other jurisdictions that have comparable or higher fees than that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where Shoppers Drug Mart would fall within that. We should find that out.
Yeah, because they're Shoppers Drug Mart in Vancouver. Right? So do they have to pay the $30,000?
Because with the Vancouver laws or regulations, it says that if you're going to sell non-medical government cannabis coming from the Liquor Cannabis Distribution Board of British Columbia, then you have to pay the $30,000 fee.
Exactly.
But if you're a compassion club, if you fall under the compassion club license, would be the medical cannabis, you would think, then you get $1,500. But the compassion club, they have to have many other things. Yes. They have to have other services. So maybe Shoppers Drug Mart would fall under that with other services they provide. Yeah. I'd like to know what they're paying.
That's a good question.
I'm sure they can afford either one.
They might get away with it because they're mail order right now, and they actually have no cannabis in their stores. So that might be a technical...
It might. But that's worth looking into. There's lots of this stuff that's worth looking into for sure.
You're reading what John was saying.
I know. I'm going to get back to that.
Yes, I know you are.
Because, it goes on from there. That's not the end of it. Yeah. John Moore.
There you go.
So the annual fee, okay, here we go. Those looking to set up a cannabis shop must first be licensed by the province. Being licensed by the province requires a $7,500 non-refundable application fee.
That could get denied.
Easily get denied. Many have been denied.
Yeah.
And for those who are lucky enough to be successful, after a police background check and a 20-year financial background check, they need to hand over a $1,500 first-year license fee, so that's $9,000 to get through the first hoop with the provincial government. I know we tried to do that with the Cannabis Substitution Program in the Healing Wave. That was our first attempt was to go through the provincial government, and we were told about all of these different fees that would be involved in maybe getting the license, maybe not getting the license. If we wouldn't adhere to their regulations with respect to how we were dispensing cannabis, then we absolutely wouldn't get their license. And so that all of that money would have been wasted. A security screening renewal fee and a municipal development permit cost are at least $908 for 100 square meters of floor space. That's about $3 per square foot of floor space, or $3,000 per 1,000 square feet for the average size store. And that depends on if you need to have a zoning hearing. If you do, it's another 6 months wait, and a cost of over $3,000 to the city. Then add applying and paying to set up an account with the Liquor Commission, which requires a line of credit set up, usually $50,000 minimum, which is paid up front to purchase from the government for retail sales with taxes. And the bank now has a $1,750 fee to apply for a cannabis use federal bank account, as well as a financial background check by the bank, which was thousands of dollars at the Bank of Montreal, non-refundable.
Wow.
And a $175 a month fee to operate the account, along with other fees for zoning changes, applying to the CRA for tax numbers, and legal fees and accounting fees as you operate with open books. The government can ask to inspect at any time, and it requires full disclosure. computer tracking of every gram in the store, so you can add it all up. It's well over $100,000 to startup costs paid up front just to get started, which does not include securing the location, paying the rent while you wait for your application to be processed. Many have paid over $5,000 a month rent for 6 months to a year before even being allowed to proceed with setting up a storefront, with security video set up, storage vaults, usually a custom-built lock-up room, which costs thousands of dollars. You're not allowed to start setting up anything until you have approval, and are then inspected by Health Canada before you are allowed to open or operate. The cost in Ontario is in the $250,000 to $300,000 range per store, and how long it will take to make that back with poor product, poor sales, zero customer service on the government side, and not one retailer showing a profit ever in over 2 years of legitimate stores across Canada. They've all lost money except for, it looks like maybe Aurora did announce a profit for 1 quarter of their operating.
That's probably the quarter that they were just talking about in the news during November and December, where it went up 52% in smoking.
They probably sold off some assets and showed it. I have
no
no idea.
Showed an increase in alcohol during those months too, right? Because of COVID, right? So,
maybe I don't know, but I know that it looks like there's 1 quarter that one LP.
I think that's Afria. That might be Afria.
Might be Afria, might be Aurora. Who knows?
One of those guys.
Well, I'll be talking about them in the future because they were history. The municipal business license fee for cannabis retail in Victoria is $5,000, along with a $7,500 rezoning fee, while in Kelowna it's a $1,000 non-refundable application fee, $9,495 rezoning fee, and an annual $9,006.45 business licensing fee. The legal system is completely broken as a business model. It's set up to lose money. It's all part of legalization. Every player in the legal market is losing everything invested in the legal market. These are the shareholders that are losing money while the boys on top continue to spend it, but the public doesn't support it. And the protection racket being run by our governments at our expense to try to allow these stores to not have any competition is one of the most obscene criminal things that I've ever witnessed in my life, and will be looked at as that in the not too distant future as well.
And when there was no legal, we had hundreds of stores that were making lots of money, and that's why we had hundreds of stores, because the market was there, people were able to make money, bring in the legal system, and now they're all losing money, right? It's
well,
they should just let it go the way it was and start.
Like John said at the end there, it's set up to lose money. It's set up to fail. I'm not sure why. I mean, it's sure they get to glean a bunch of money from hyped up investors who think that it's a good thing that now weed is going to be legal, because who could lose money selling weed? If you have costs like that involved, if you have product that people don't want in packaging that people don't want to be part of, and it's supporting a marketplace that has government-funded protection rackets running all over the place, breaking into people's homes, counting how many plants you're growing, seeing if you have too many flowers, seeing if you're helping other people who can't grow for themselves have flowers because they need them for their medical reasons, or helps them sleep, or cancer people who need it to help them with their appetite and to not vomit so much. And kids, and
if you happen to buy something that's a little bit moldy, you cannot return it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Now we got some good friends of ours that have a legal store, and they have to purchase cannabis through the government, the British Columbia Liquor Cannabis Distribution Branch. It all comes pre-packaged in this obscene packaging where there's over 70 grams of packaging for like 1 gram of dried out terpene vacant weed. And they're using irradiation, which kills the terpenes. It's there to kill the mold.
There's a list
because there might be some mold apparently. And if they're not going to irradiate it, then like you say, there's a list of chemicals that they're allowed to use that kill microbes. We're all made of microbes. Microbes on all of our food. We were all microbes for 1 billion years before we managed to evolve out of that. Microbes are our great-great-grandparents. Like, don't be killing microbes. What's wrong with microbes? Microbes don't hurt anybody. Most of them are good. So anyway, this crazy attempt to try to make the government weed safe by saying that it's dangerous and it's got these microbes on it, which nobody's ever been hurt by in the history of cannabis use ever anyway. And all it is a big big scam so they can say, oh, we have to provide safe weed if we're going to do it, because after all, we had to use...
Dangerous for
It's
you.
dangerous.
Oh.
Weed must be dangerous,
It must
Glenn.
be, yeah. That's
Look
why
at-
the government's doing this,
It was
right?
prohibited for
Yeah.
years. They used the criminal law against people for...
I know.
And you weren't
I
even
did
allowed to
time
have a
for
little
that
bit of
weed,
it.
Yeah.
It must be dangerous, Glenn.
Yeah.
It must be.
Biblical Jail, Don Jail, the West Detention Center. Jeez, man.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, when Prohibition is in place, that weed is dangerous because
Yeah.
it can get your ass put in jail. You can lose your house because of that weed. In other parts of the world, there's a half dozen countries where it can get you killed.
Yep.
The government
Oh, yeah.
will do you a big favor and keep you from the horrors of cannabis addiction by executing your ass if you got more than like 30 grams of weed
There's
on
some
you,
countries
50
you
grams
can't
of
even
weed
have
on you.
it, right? Period. Dry country. Wasn't it Iran? or
So it
something
must
like that,
be
or-
dangerous,
yeah,
right?
No, it must be.
Must be dangerous. Holy shit. Wow, I'm so happy that we have public servants that are on that, they're on that for us.
Yeah, they're protecting our ass, yeah, sure.
Because that shit's dangerous.
That's the only thing, yeah.
Don't be smoking that marijuana
They
stuff.
make you think that they're doing good for you, but like I always tell everybody, when I was growing up, they told us to build bomb shelters because the Russians were going to bomb us. Well, that never
Well, they
happened.
might have.
They told us that cannabis was bad for us. Now we find out that
That was a lie.
That's a lie too.
That was a big-time lie.
Yeah, now it's global warming, right?
Well,
So
it's
that's
a-
a big focus now. So
it's a-
and
yeah,
that's happening.
What a world if you want to be a journalist. I mean, if you're somebody who wants to report on insane stuff that's going on in the world, well, hey, you got Prohibition of cannabis.
Yeah.
Holy shit, let's see what that's all about, and let's see what that's doing.
Yeah,
Wow.
but now more of the states have made it legal. It looks like they might even go federally legal. They're saying down there.
Well, we still got all kinds of issues. Glenn, we want to talk some more about that with our next guest.
Sure.
And, we're gonna do that. I thank you for coming on and sharing the 420 session with me as
and
always.
thank you ICC for sending us a nice doobie to smoke.
Yeah,
that
thanks.
was
Appreciate
very
that.
tasty.
Very tasty.
Very tasty.
I
Yes.
think I might have got high or something. I started to rant.
Yeah, you did, and then you started smoking another one, so you definitely got high.
That dangerous marijuana stuff.
But it got high.
It's so dangerous.
All
So,
right, we'll see you next week, sir.
I'll see you next week. So next up on the show we have the Martin Medical Moment, and this is a segment of the show where we give some exposure to what's been going on with medical cannabis and people that had medical cannabis dispensaries and what legalization has meant for them. And in our case in particular, Jerry Martin was a dispensary owner in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, a small town in Saskatchewan. And he'd been helping his community get access to cannabis in the spirit of what was going on in the rest of Canada, with there being talk of legalization on the horizon, and there was many other not yet legal medical cannabis dispensaries operating all over the country. And so Jerry opened his dispensary. It's been over 8 years ago now, and for 4 years he helped his community get access to cannabis and medical patients get what they needed. And instead of being accepted into the mainstream marketplace as he expected to happen, he was eventually ordered to shut down. And then when that was an impossibility, you can't stop helping people who are suffering from serious medical conditions from getting their medicine. I mean, who would do that? That would be a pretty criminal thing to do. So he continued to do that, and then they came and arrested him and ended up seizing his properties. And they've been torturing him for the last 4 years, hanging all sorts of things over his head with respect to the prosecution of those charges, and that's coming up pretty soon now. So in any case, let's talk to Jerry about where he's at with that whole thing and get his take on what's going on now. Hey Jerry.
Hey, how are you?
Welcome to the show. Getting close to a court date.
Yeah, it's coming up.
After over 4, is it going to pass 4.5 years? Are they going to
Yeah, for
squeak
sure.
under there? Because it's November, right?
Yeah,
December, January, February, March, April. What were
beginning
they?
of November, so November, December.
We might just get you in there
January,
just
February,
before the
April, that'll be
4.5
the-
year mark,
Yeah,
unless they delay it.
yeah.
Wow, 4.5 years of waiting for a day in court to be able to see what's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
So what's going to happen?
I don't know.
You don't know, eh?
I don't know.
Are you optimistic?
A little.
I'm a lot.
Well,
I got to stay a lot optimistic.
yeah.
I can't force myself to believe that we live in such a corrupt world.
Well, that's the problem. I know it's corrupt.
I do too. I guess it's my lack of realism that
Yeah.
that lets me down a lot of times. Because really, I've been
Yeah.
disappointed a lot of times in what the courts have done. And this is in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, which is really backwards. So, yeah.
if you're in Saskatchewan, go and support this gentleman. It's April 26th, 24th?
26th, 28th,
26th,
Monday to
28th.
Wednesday, yeah.
Monday to Wednesday at the courthouse in Regina.
In Regina.
Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, lady judge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that means something positive. You know, I would like to think that it should.
I was hoping so.
I hope so. You know, our whole,
A
lot of our whole,
might not.
a lot of our whole spirit of justice surrounds this older woman blindfolded. You know, and so that you know, I can't believe that anybody would look at the evidence and be able to do anything but apologize to you and give you your stuff back. Really,
That would be nice.
you know, because the whole scenario we've gone over it a number of times on the show, and I alluded to it just a little bit in the introduction there. But when you're a dispensary owner and you've got 1,000 people, you got 1,000 members.
About 1,000, yeah.
You got 1,000 people, and in this case, a strict medical dispensary. You weren't selling to anybody off
No.
the street at all.
No.
You required a doctor's confirmation of diagnosis, and so you know, you have 1,000 people that you're helping with what their needs are, and they're coming in every day and getting what they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they're pretty happy about
Especially
that.
in Saskatchewan.
Especially in Saskatchewan. Of all places, they should be more lenient than less with you, because this need that the courts have established that people have for access to cannabis for their medical needs, I mean, this has been well established in the courts. Saskatchewan is one of the places where it's the hardest to access that. So that, you know, if you're going before a judge and you've been helping people get access to that which the courts have said people need to have access to, and the government has yet to properly provide reasonable access, you would think that the courts in Saskatchewan would recognize that, you know, you're one of the good people trying to help out in a bad situation that you didn't create, you just tried to help out with. But we'll see if that's the case, eh? We'll see. Wow.
Yeah.
So this is going on with yourself and Pat Warnke.
Yeah, and I don't remember the other guy's name.
You're supposed to remember the names for the show.
No, well, I've never met him, I guess. That's
see.
probably
Well,
thing.
yeah.
Weyburn. It's a dispensary out of Weyburn.
I see.
Yeah.
So 3 in total?
Yeah.
And so you kind of joined together, pooled resources a little bit because the stories are very similar.
Yeah.
And Paul Lewin is your lawyer.
Yeah, Paul's my lawyer. I don't know who Pat's is.
So there are other lawyers
Oh
besides
yeah, there's
Paul.
a few lawyers. I'm sure Jack will be helping out and with
See?
other people. So.
Good old Jack.
Yeah.
I love Jack.
Yeah.
And I love the lawyers in our community and the work that they've done to get us this far, fighting an obviously very corrupt system. It blew me away, you know, as always. But to see what would happen when the dispensaries that were being shut down in Vancouver decided to challenge the city on doing that, and they go into court for this challenge, and there's like 6 lawyers that are all paid for by taxpayers, by the 3 different levels of government, that are all there to fight the dispensaries, and all the dispensaries are trying to do is get the city to let them help people get cannabis, because obviously there's a need for it. There was 180 dispensaries here. They all had a large clientele, thousands of members. So it was, you know, it's just crazy that would happen like that. But the amount of money that they spend on defending the bad position.
Oh yeah.
We've won how many court cases?
It's not about
Supreme
what's
Court?
right. It's about them being right.
Yeah. It's about how much money of our money do they have to spend to be able to not be proved that what they're doing is wrong.
And it didn't work anyways. Everywhere I look, there's an illegal dispensary here again. So
There's a few in Vancouver now again, and they seem to be popping up regularly. I heard that was going on.
Budzill's open again.
Well, Budzilla is a legal dispensary now.
No, he's not.
Oh yes, he is.
Oh, is he?
Oh yes, he is.
Oh, he went all legal, did
He
he?
went all legal.
Oh, he called me that day in my heart attack, actually.
I see.
In the hospital, yeah.
I see.
Reg, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to Reg, not too long ago, and
I hadn't talked to him in a long time until he called me there.
I got to talk to him again and see
that's good. You gotta
see if
listen.
he's happy with his legal
Probably
story.
not, but at least he's under a lot less stress.
Or is he? Or is he?
Still what
You know?
happened to all his charges and everything?
Well, that's what I mean. I don't know if all those went away. I mean, they were seeking property seizure and all kinds of
they
stuff
took
on him
that
as well. And so he's obviously gone through all these hoops that I mentioned earlier on the show that you have to go through and all the costs involved. I know he was paying rent on that store for
Must be more lenient
long
in
time.
BC than somewhere else to get a license with a criminal record. Or pending. It must be.
That might be true.
You know, it's got
well, Chris Goodwin got,
Yeah.
or is he just working for him? Does he
my,
have a license
my
there?
lawyers keep telling me there's absolutely zero chance I'll ever get approved.
In Saskatchewan?
Yeah, or anywhere.
Well, that court case is yet to happen yet.
Yeah, I got some other.
But, you know, to have
charges.
Don Briere from Weeds get
Yeah.
approval, he's got
Yeah.
3 government licenses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like Don.
I love Don and
Yeah.
Carol, and
Yeah.
they love weed,
Yeah.
and they like freedom, and you know, they're just doing whatever it takes to be able to sell weed, but at the same time, they're actively trying to improve the system, and I know that about them, and others as well that are working in the legal cannabis side of things. They're actively working to make it better there, and it's not good, and they're not happy. In the case of Don and Carol, they have to purchase their cannabis through the government liquor cannabis distribution
I
project.
heard what they're doing. That's great.
They can't see it, they can't test it, they can't sample it unless they buy it themselves.
Yeah.
So now they go to the other side of the counter and become a consumer and just buy some of the prepackaged cannabis that they bought through the store. They have to pay all.
They're not even allowed to inspect their.
Nope.
Wow.
They then, and they have to pay all the associated taxes as well as just a buyer of this retail container full of 1 gram of cannabis, and then they can test it. In 12 samples tested, 4 of them came up with, or was it 3 of them? 3 or 4 came up with mold, powdery mildew, the things you don't want if you're a medical user, things that have always been in weed that we've purchased forever throughout until we had some legal dispensaries that cared about it and scoped it and decided not to sell that to people, but a lot of the stuff coming in to their stores that they rejected, other stores would buy, and there's never been anybody that's seriously been harmed, except that perhaps there's, and I've never met them, but I've been told that there's certain medical conditions where smoking moldy cannabis will aggravate that situation.
Yeah, I can see that for
it's
sure.
Probably not good to do.
Yeah, I've smoked mold. I can tell as soon as I smoke moldy weed.
I know I
My
smoke
throat
moldy
starts going, and it's very easy to tell.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy to tell if there's small amounts.
Yeah.
There's small amounts. Lots of times we don't even notice, and you don't notice because there's really no repercussions from it,
Right.
and it's not an issue. But anyway, there's mold in the government weed. When they tried to get Health Canada to deal with that, Health Canada said, no, you have to deal with the LPs on that. In dealing with the LPs, most of them said, don't worry
We're
about
getting
it.
away with it.
Just
You gotta
sell it.
buy it.
Yeah, we're not taking it back.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just sell it. So, if you're a medical user of cannabis, or anybody who thinks you want to smoke quality cannabis, don't use the government stores.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be
They're
they're supposed to be irradiating and spraying with chemicals. And don't get me wrong, I don't want them to do more irradiation and more chemicals to make sure there's no mold in the weed they're selling. But they're supposed to be doing that, and yet still there's mold in about 25% of the cannabis that's coming through the legal producers. So yeah, it's oh my God, it's overwhelming, Jerry. The whole thing is overwhelming. I always want to talk to you about just how crazy it is. And it gets just overwhelming. It's so insane. Nobody was ever harmed in the selling of cannabis from your medical dispensary into your community. 1,000 people plus that will tell anybody who asks them that they were happy that your service was there, that it helped them in many different ways. And yet here we have public servants, our government, using our tax dollars to attack you, to penalize you for doing what you did.
Yeah.
And yet there's no victim. There's no...
There's no...
And that's the other thing. I mean, you're not looking at jail time probably anymore, right?
Well, I'm hoping not, but Saskatchewan, I don't know.
It's up to the judge.
Yeah.
But so
technically,
if you're not looking at, if you think probably you're not going to get jail time, what are you going to get?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it would be a fine, right?
I'm assuming, but they wanted like a $600,000 fine before. I'm hoping it's not that bad now. But
let's say it's $600,000. What do you think this whole thing? Well, I mean, that's not a fair question because you haven't done the math on it, and neither have I.
Yeah.
But I mean, for those of you out there that think you might want to look into it,
I think Mark said he would have done a little over a year for $100,000 or something.
no. Well, Mark, what?
Emery.
No, but what I'm looking at is if these public servants have come after you to penalize you for the damage that you did, even though you didn't do anything, that fine has got to be something about getting back the costs of going after you. You would think.
Well, including in there, they want to fine me for all the donations that I made. They want that money. They give it to other people. They didn't get it. Alright, so yeah, he was very clear about that. They were going to fine me for the
donations of the money that you gave to
that
people.
I money laundered. I didn't donate anything. I money laundered.
But you didn't get anything back for any of it.
That doesn't matter. I sold the drugs and I bought old folks stuff and children, sports equipment and kids camps and hospital beds and all these sort of things, and that's money laundering. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Although we got receipts.
Well, that might help you. Hopefully that'll help you.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on for almost 4.5 years. You're on to your second prosecutor. Neufeld, the first prosecutor.
Second lawyer, third lawyer.
Well, those are more costs from you.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about what the government is going to get back for us on behalf of taxpayers for the money that they're spending.
Well, they got a couple
to
$100,000
get it.
vehicles already, and they got and they got my building downtown. They'll probably get $100,000 for that. And
$100,000 for your building?
yeah, downtown it's worth a lot more. Yeah.
So
So I got like the biggest building in town, right? Other than the arena.
I see.
Yeah.
All you got to do is wait for the downtown to expand by about a block,
Yeah.
and then you'll have
I could have got $80,000 for it a few years ago, but then
I
they
see.
seized it. So
right.
yeah, it's a big building.
So they might
Good
get
idea.
another $100,000 out of you, maybe more. Eh?
Yeah.
Maybe
But
a
then
little more.
they're going to charge me to repair the buildings and stuff. Yeah, which is the thing. That's where the money is.
And they seized vehicles off of you that
Yeah.
they're going to sell,
And
but
still
you
owe.
still owed money on the vehicles.
Owe. Yeah, my credit rating went down again. I thought it was going to go up this month. And now down again it went.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they go like a lot.
So Neufeld, he was there for what, 3 years?
I don't know, he's still around. I guess it's like.
But he was on your. He had your file.
Because Dennis had a Neufeld too. I think it's like the family business.
It could be.
Fucking people up.
There's a lot of family stuff going on in Saskatchewan when it comes to the power structure of that province.
For sure.
So anyway, I'm just trying to estimate some costs here. I'm thinking Neufeld. I guess it doesn't matter what prosecutor, except that the new prosecutor is going to have to spend even more time getting up to speed, whereas Neufeld had like 3 years plus to.
He was a financial crimes guy, right?
Oh yeah.
So now they've got a constitutional judge, or more constitutional judge and lawyer, which is supposed to be good.
Right.
And then same with the crown prosecutor now. He specializes more in constitutional and dispensary law, right? So
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow, this is extremely important.
Yeah.
You know what's going on with that
Yeah.
case, obviously.
At least we're kind of hoping that the people that are now prosecuted have an understanding of the law. Right?
They've
The other
got-
guy just had a hard on.
They've
for me
also
for
got some
money,
new
right?
direction
So-
because of Sean Howell and then the case in Alberta
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
I mean, that judge stated really clearly and made comment on many of the different aspects of what you're trying to accomplish with respect to getting people access through a medical storefront without all the barriers that people face that are poor or technologically challenged or whatever. Lots of different reasons people can't access the system. So that really did address a whole bunch of that there. So that should be persuasive, if nothing else. You know, it's one province over, and lots of things are persuasive. I think you're going to be good. But the costs on what they've done to date, I think, are just extreme, because the prosecutors are obviously billing time on the file.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know what Neufeld would have billed over 3 years, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, I'm sure,
You know.
because you got, and then you
I
got
mean,
all
you've had-
the police.
You've had over 40 appearances in court.
Yeah.
So he would have had to, book onto his file those
yeah.
appearances in court to do with your file.
Yeah.
Those court costs also are now associated. So every one of those 40 plus times you're in
You
court.
got transcript people,
The judges and the sheriffs.
Yeah, sheriffs.
Just to turn the lights on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, cha-ching, 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 spend.
Yeah.
No expense appears to be, ruled out when it comes to the government trying to protect their own interests with respect to cannabis. They've never funded activists.
Really?
They've never, why doesn't the government fund activists to try to change things, for the better for people? Because isn't that what activists are all about? They're people that are so concerned about things that are going on in society, about people being harmed, that they decide to devote their life to it. And so shouldn't activists be respected for what they're trying to do? Shouldn't they at least be listened to? And really, shouldn't they be supported by governments? Instead, governments spend all this money to try to shut the activists up, to criminalize the behaviors.
Call them terrorists, call them all kinds of different things.
Exactly. So we really are living in an upside down world here. I mean, Canada seems like a very nice place, but when it comes right down to being a subject, we think we're citizens, but we're treated like subjects. We're treated like people that, really only have a few rights given to us by the Lord, and that we better behave and obey or else.
Yeah.
And the cops, as soon as they think you're a lawbreaker, well, now they don't treat you nice at all.
No, they beat the shit right out of you these days.
Exactly. I mean, you can have a nice encounter with a cop if they think you're just somebody reporting a crime, or somebody who's trying to help with the neighborhood in some way. But as soon as they decide that now you're somebody that is a troublemaker or whatever, now they punish people on behalf of the state. That's what they do. That's the attitude that they have. And I've been there on both sides of it too. I used to work for insurance companies for a long time before I quit my real job to do this real job. I was a restoration guy and I worked for insurance companies. And so that I'd go into places where people had had their homes broken into. And in many cases, the police would tell the homeowner that, if you catch them, make sure they fall down the stairs trying to escape once or twice before we get here, because we really can't do too much to them. But they do what they can do. They put those handcuffs on so bloody tight.
Yeah.
They really treat you like you're scum.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been caught breaking into somebody else's house, you deserve to be treated badly. We can all say, hey, that's all right, I mean, the courts aren't going to hurt those people. They're just going to let them go. So maybe they should get, the handcuffs on too tight and a miserable experience between breaking into a house and whatever doesn't happen to them in the court system.
I think they should really find out why the person's broke into the house in the first place.
There should be some of that.
Yeah?
There should be. I'm just saying, a case could be made for how you could see why maybe it's okay that the cops kind of treat them badly. You can make that case with a guy breaking into a house that gets caught.
Yeah.
Like you say, there could be extenuating circumstances there too.
I think they're all insinuating circumstances.
But with drug
breaking into a
prohibition,
fucking house.
with drug prohibition, now the cops can suspect you of being this troublemaker.
Oh, I know.
Just because you got a glaze in your eyes, just because you're laughing a little too hard, just because they saw some smoke coming.
Units,
It's crazy. So now anybody can be a troublemaker, and if all of a sudden you get on the wrong side of that policeman, and all of a sudden he suspects maybe you're one of them, then all of a sudden you get a very different treatment here.
Yeah.
And anyway, we all know how wrong that seems to be, and I'm not sure how you stop that.
Yeah.
But certainly cameras on cops would be a great idea. Some other mechanisms that we could put in place to discourage some of that. I mean, it goes beyond that too, of course, right? Because to get on the bad side of the cop, it depends a bit on your skin color and his attitude about your skin color in many cases, Depends on what clothing you're wearing and his attitude about what clothing you might be wearing. So,
what I mean?
Yeah,
it's all kinds of different reasons.
Yeah, they really have taken...
They see tattoos of me, and
they see tattoos.
I got the look. And
That's right. You got two different colored hair. You look like you just might have been a troublemaker at some point. You know what I mean? If a cop's in a bad mood, my point is, these are public servants. These are supposed to be peacekeepers. They're not supposed to interfere or bother anybody unless there's real significant reason and demonstrable evidence that somebody has been harmed. And we need to make sure that they are erring on the side of caution and compassion. They're big. They got guns. They're intimidating. They're not all big these days, I guess, but they're intimidating. Yeah, they used to all be big. And the point to that is that they're armed, they're big, they're trained, they're fit, and you're not going to mess with them. You're not going to lie to them. You're going to, they're very intimidating. So they don't need, to be nasty. Right? They're going to get people complying without being nasty most of the time. Sometimes you got to be nasty. I mean, I'm not a police hater. I know sometimes.
I'm not nasty unless they pull some shady shit, which they usually do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Pull me over and say, "Listen, you're no drug dealer. We got to search your vehicle." I'd be cool with that. But it's the deception.
Right.
I had those cops pull me over that one day, and all 3 cops had a different story as to why they pulled me over.
Right.
All 3 of them. You know what I mean? And that I found disturbing. That's profiling. That's got nothing to do with...
We want to respect our police. We want to like our police. We want to feel safe around our police. And so the government needs to get out of the business of telling people what they can and cannot do with respect to drugs and substances like that, because most of all of this is all about drugs. And if you look at why the police's demeanor has gone from being peace officers to being enforcement people, why they treat people the way they treat them, why they can quickly go sideways on somebody if they decide that you're a drug user or you're a troublemaker because of breaking, not like laws that shouldn't be laws, consensual things between humans where no harm is done. The government has no business there. And the big one obviously is prohibition. But all of this has cost our society so much. This attempt to prohibit cannabis, opium, coca, these plants that people use to have whatever experiences they want to have. All of this has driven so much problems in our society. It's the main reason that we don't respect the police the way we should, and it's the main reason the police don't behave the way that they should to get the respect that they would like to get. So we can solve all of this stuff if we want to. I think as people, we are up against tough odds. I think that the powers that be are working on an agenda to bring us closer to being scrutinized and oppressed and forced into consuming and producing for those corporate interests that would want to do that. I think that we're in danger of that agenda being acted upon and succeeded upon. I think that we're in danger here now. The whole COVID year of government certainly infringing on people's rights and freedoms in the name of public health to be able to try to put down a virus has allowed for power grabs amongst government. It's allowed for people to become much more complicit and less questioning about government.
It's fearful.
Yeah, even afraid to question. It's like so much peer pressure about questioning anything as well. That we are definitely living in precarious times when it comes to the pursuit of freedom that we've been after for a while. So let's keep working on it, folks. Let's free the weed, because overgrowing the government and getting actual legalization, reasonable legalization for weed, is one of the real big stepping stones to getting these other rights protected and these other government agencies or other ways that governments are out of control back under control. It is a big one. And if we can't achieve that, if we can't get some cannabis freedom, reasonable freedom, we don't have it yet with government legalization, but if we can get our community cannabis store model accepted and approved and licensed, and that can be the norm across Canadian communities as well, excuse me, where people can get reasonable access through a cannabis shop that has prices that are affordable for medical users, daily users, people that need high quantities, high quality, then I think we can, breathe a sigh of relief. Everybody that needs to can get proper access, and we can move on to some of those other areas where government is out of control.
Yeah, freeing our minds.
Freeing our minds. Yeah, exactly. Thought freedom is the new buzzword these days, and it's interesting because one of the one of the tenets of a crime is intent. So the whole idea about, well, what did you intend? What did you think? You know, conspiracies are all about what were you thinking about? You know, did you or didn't you think about this? You know, so the intrusion into our thought processes is well underway. So therefore, the grab back, you know, the pushback against that needs to be well underway as well. That people need their own freedom of thought, because just like with prohibition of substances, the attempts to prohibit people's thoughts will cause, you know, significantly.
All this AI shit coming into play now. You know, I think it's more important than ever. You can have
much more important.
You know, there's gonna be laws around your freedom of thought. You know, once that shit comes in.
Yeah, they're working hard on being able to figure out what it is you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are dangerous times, because the problems that will be associated with prohibiting thought are equal to the problems that have been associated with trying to prohibit plants. And yeah, it's lots to fight for. You know, if you're a fighter and you want to fight for things, there's lots to fight for. So what we've been fighting for, you and me, for a long time, is for people to have access for medical reasons.
Yeah.
In your community as well as in our community, it wasn't just people's medical conditions that you were helping with, it was people who were having trouble with other drugs that you were able to help as well, correct?
Yeah, all kinds of different situations. Yeah, but definitely, you know, people quit drinking, you know, kept them off, you know, a lot of them off other drugs. There was an option, you know.
Yeah.
When you took it at the store, there was no option anymore. Especially in small towns, because they can't drive anywhere, and who the fuck wants to drive in the middle of winter anywhere over there anyways?
Yeah.
That's dangerous in itself.
So you addressed your community's issues by providing some access to government or doctor approval through the doctor approval model.
Yeah.
Here in Vancouver, we have, you know, similar problems, you know, considerably worse problems with other substances, alcohol, opioids, amphetamines,
Yeah,
barbiturates.
unfortunately, we've got all those problems now too.
We have all those problems here in spades. The access to cannabis was in its heyday not too bad at dispensaries. I mean, there was dispensaries in this area as well, dispensaries that provided some compassionate pricing for some people that needed it. That was available. There's hardly any of that left now. The problem is raging completely out of control with respect to no access to cannabis now. In this neighborhood here, this ground zero for, you know, the problem of you know, drugs in general, illegal drugs, specifically opioids, and the fentanyl crisis is hitting this neighborhood more than most, although all the neighborhoods are being affected by it. So we've been trying to help with that, as you did in your community, for the last 4 years since we started a program called the Cannabis Substitution Project. It's a project where we decided to, in a collaboration with the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, a group that speaks on behalf of the oppressed people that are using drugs and oppressed by the drug laws, where we made high-dose edibles available for free to people that would line up twice a week to get that. And we gave out about 300 care packages every day, twice a week, for 2.5 out of the 3 years. The first year we only did it for 1 day a week. And so that resulted in some movement. That's what we were trying to do in doing that, was to get the government, who at the time that the project started had decided to regulate the dispensaries in Vancouver, even though there wasn't legalization in Canada yet, but they were going to regulate these dispensaries, and in doing so they imposed regulations that involved taking away the availability of edibles. And high-dose edibles is a way off of those hard drugs, the opioids, alcohol, and the other things. There's a withdrawal, a physical withdrawal that people have to go through if they're on those substances and have been for a while, and that's the real barrier to stopping. And one of the ways through the withdrawal is high-dose edibles, that really makes that a lot easier for people to go through. And so that when that was taken away by our municipal government here, that was the impetus for starting the program of giving it away at Vandu. 2.5 years after starting doing that and continuing it, the city then passed a motion that they would allow for low barrier access. And that meant what we were doing plus more. and that motion passed unanimously. We went and met with the city. It was our project, as well as the High Hope Society with the OPS that was also giving away high-dose edibles to people there, that prompted that motion in the first place. And we had an understanding that we would find a storefront and that we would open up and provide access in a low-barrier fashion to people, and that they would assess that, and if we were meeting the needs of the community, then they would come and support us in that endeavor. So that all happened. It was a year ago, 9 months ago now, that we found this particular location that we're broadcasting from. We set it up as a community cannabis store, started providing our project, which we then turned into a program where people would get registered, and we registered 250 of them, people that had been in our lineup at Van Du for all those years, and they get to have 420 milligrams of their choosing of high-dose edibles, THC, CBD, whatever they want, every 4 days. So 9 months ago we started that. That lasted for 4.5 months before we ended up getting evicted, because the city wouldn't give us the license that they said they would, because they decided as a municipality they would follow Canada's lead with the Cannabis Act, and that we need to get permission from Ottawa before they would license us here. And without licensing us here, the landlord felt he was at risk of prosecution, and much against his better judgment and will, did take us to court. And the judge in the court case, rather than giving us some time, we asked for 6 months for Ottawa to process our emergency application for a ministerial exemption and eventually licenses for us and our suppliers. That we felt 6 months would be enough time to get those licenses, and we'd already applied 2 months before we got into court, and he decided that he wouldn't give us any time, that what we were doing was contrary to the Cannabis Act, that our hands were unclean, didn't have any blood on them like his, but at least our hands were unclean, and he wouldn't grant us any extra time to get our licenses before granting the eviction. So we were not able to stop what we were doing. With 250 people as registered members of our program, many of them had been with us for years, relying on us for the cannabis that we were giving them, over 100 milligrams a day, to help them stay off of the other drugs. We had support letters from doctors and professors and community organizations in harm reduction that all supported what we were doing, and they were stating, and we understood as well, that these people would be put at risk of death if we were to just all of a sudden stop our program. So rather than do that, we procured an RV, and the very next day after being evicted, we were in the RV and helping people get access to that. That's been, this is our 109th day today of providing access from the RV. This is our 19th week. We did initially have interference from the VPD, who came and raided us in the RV 2 weeks after we moved into it. I've read the report on that. They state that it was simply due to their non-vending unit coming across what we were doing, seeing that there was open cannabis vending going on, and that's what prompted the raid. But for on our side, what it prompted was a lot of action to try to get that to stop. And so I tapped on the shoulders of many of the people that support us who made phone calls. I also wrote an email to Deputy Chief Steve Ray from the VPD, who I met when I presented our program to them over 4 years ago now, 4 years ago last November. So behind the scenes, things were done, inquiries were made, and 8 weeks later, I got a call from a VPD representative who told me that they really sympathized with our position. They really hoped that we would be able to get our licenses, but in the meantime, we needed to stop doing what we were doing because we didn't have those licenses, and what we're doing is contravening the criminal code and the Cannabis Act. I explained very carefully before those statements were made to Candace Murphy, the VPD representative, that these doctors and professors and community organizations were all in unison saying that people's lives would be put at risk if we were to stop. And so when she informed me that in their opinion we had to stop anyway, I informed her that that wouldn't happen. and they can do what they have to do, but we're going to keep doing what we're going to have to do. And if they arrest me, there's a number of people that would follow in my footsteps and make sure that this continued. And so far now it's been 10 weeks since that conversation with her. So I guess I had my time off a little bit. It was 2 weeks when the VPD raided us once we moved into the RV. It was a couple of weeks later that we had our conversation with Candace Murphy. And now we're in our 19th week of being out there, and we haven't had any more interference from them at all. And we got communication from Health Canada before Christmas saying that they were sorry it had taken so long to process our emergency application for this ministerial exemption, but that it was complicated, that they were concerned that other people would be asking for the same permission if they gave it to us. And then I said to them, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I mean, what we're doing is wonderful work in this community. We're helping to rescue people from addiction and better their lives. So in any case, they said that, with COVID and with it being the holidays and what have you, it would probably take until early January before they could get the work done. But early January came and went, early February came and went, early March has come and gone. We did have an email from them last Wednesday, so 6 days ago. We got an email from Health Canada saying that they thanked us for our regular submissions because John Conroy, our magnificent hero of a lawyer, has been providing them with updates as these new studies come forward, proving what we're doing is helping people, saving lives. He submits that to them, and he always is pretty good at reminding them that we're continuing to operate our program from an RV parked on the curb, now right through the whole winter. We're almost done winter. So, please hurry is the point. And now it's 6 months ago today that we submitted that application, so 6 months. Health Canada on Wednesday said, thank you for your submissions. Our team is working on your issue diligently, and we are conversing with the people involved, and be a little more patient with us. So that's what we're doing. Maybe tomorrow, we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe. You never know.
We'll see.
So that's where we're at. And at this point, we should go and visit the RV and give you an update for what's going on out there. If for no other reason than it's a beautiful sunny day in Vancouver, one of the best places in the world. Unless you're a medical user of cannabis, in which case there's no good place in the world. Stretch, bring a joint.
What's this?
Well, we have joints rolled for us.
It's just joints everywhere.
And so, I get these. I get some of the local people rolling joints for us sometimes because I want to spread things around. And every once in a while, they include a couple that didn't get through the quality control people. I mean, those would help too.
We used to sell these for like $5 back in the day.
Remember when a joint like that would have
Before,
like tie stick in it or something like that? And they'd be like, wow. Yeah. Pinners, we used to call them.
Sorry, I should tell you this story.
Pinners, and now the only reference you ever hear to pinners is when they're talking about salt spring pinners, but those are not pinners. That's kind of the point. A lovely day. This is the Healing Wave RV van. Nice and clean. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Going very well. I got my sun visor on today, thanks to the good people at the company here.
I see.
So, show us some cannabis. What do we got there?
You got some big kush right there.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah. What else you got?
Well, we pretty much sold out of all the really good stuff.
I see.
But,
Well, that's good.
OG.
That's nice.
We got some.
All right. Well, let's go to the back. This is. I must say that we have a variety of things in there. We have all kinds of concentrates and topicals. We even have suppositories. and that's considered the Healing Wave side of the van. This is considered the Cannabis Substitution Program's side of the van. I had signs that identified this. I like to have signs explaining what we're doing to anybody going by or to whoever needs to know. But the VPD, when they raided us, that was kind of part of the deal, was that we keep a low profile, we get rid of our signs, and so far they're leaving us alone. So don't want to really poke the bear until we see what Health Canada says. But this is the Cannabis Substitution side. As usual, we have George. How you doing, George?
Yeah, doing okay today.
How's the day?
Nice and bright and sunny.
Warm?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, in the sun. And so let's see the products. This is our little tray of edibles that we have for people. We still have some Mary's cookies, yes? No?
No.
Shout out to Mary. She was our baker for so long here and helped us out with all these things. And now she's gone to spread the love. She's gone back east, and there'll be a project starting up there if it hasn't already. But in the meantime, I guess we're out of your stuff, Mary, but it's okay. People have stepped up. We got help. We need more always because it's a program that runs by donation. But we're doing pretty good. We got a good selection for people, and we're very happy with that.
We've got 27 people today.
27 people today have come to get their 420 milligrams. And yeah, so that's what's going on. Let's go inside. Hey, J-Mac, how you doing? You want to say hi? So, hey, there's J-Mac. He's been one of the beneficiaries of cannabis over the years, for sure. Many of you know him from different appearances at different places and all the rallies. One of our main volunteers at 420 over the years, and numerous other things. And the reason you might not recognize him if you haven't seen him for a while is because he used to always be like in a chair and not being able to stand, and you know. And you do a lot more than that. Like, tell us what you do these days.
Lately, I'm like YouTube as a gamer right now because of COVID time. But right now, I've been biking, and it's really hard because for certain acts of cannabis I get through, my life is really painful. I suffer from cerebral palsy, and it's really hard to but I really can't get by. And with the Healing Man, and the Healing Wave, and the Cannabis Substitution Project, and the little bird access to cannabis, it helps me to be pain-free for the day. And because normally I'm in pain, I'm always in pain. I injured my right leg back in 2013 in a bike accident. And so it's been really hard since then. But really, I've done support through the cannabis community, through cannabis culture, through Eden back in the day. Eden was a big supporter to me, helping me get by. I want to give a shout out to Adolfo. He has given a study to prove that it does work, and this believe it does. I'm not walking around. Although may not look like it's good, me walking serious is good. Well, whatever these guys do here, they help. They help me with everything. Cannabis, running Neil, back in the day when I was Neil, right, I was in pain. I was in a chair. I couldn't walk. And in the last 5 years, I'm not walking around, I'm now biking. I came in Missouri by SkyTrain. And right now, this is a good beat outside because I haven't been out for a while. I have not been out for a while because of COVID. But I'm like, fuck it, nice day. Let's go downtown. So, you know, thank you for stuff you do. Thank you for CSP and the Healing Wave band. Thank you guys, you guys are the best. And cannabis saves lives. Remember what the government says. Cannabis saves lives. Government cannabis, it's okay to pinch, but real homegrown stuff, or stuff you can get from friends that grow their weed, it's better because it has more stuff that you need. I will use real weed, not good weed. And I'm walking within 5 years. I'm every chair I'm walking. So, you tell me guys, weed works? Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, J-Mac. Thank you so much for saying all that stuff. And his story is similar to so many other people's stories as well. Cannabis does save lives. It's going pretty good. We're using natural light today.
Yes, we are. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
Charlie, that's the first, is it not? Spring's here.
Natural light, yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We've sprung ahead here in British Columbia.
Here we are.
And, so what's new in the Healing Wave van?
It's actually been relatively busy today.
Yeah, it's pretty
And,
good.
any stories? I don't know, I always ask you for stories.
We've had lots of newcomers again. You know, saying a friend of theirs told them to come here for a free joint.
Yeah.
Or a cookie or
Give out
whatnot.
lots of Mike's cookies.
Yep.
As
And
always.
we gave out some of John's little cupcakes too.
Yeah, we have John Murray, such an excellent supporter of ours in so many ways. Doesn't get enough recognition. Although I read one of his things today on the show.
I know he always gets offended when I forget to
I don't know why we
name drop
forget
him.
him.
I'm like,
I know.
John, I'm a stoner. I never remember everything.
John's a champion.
John is totally a champion
He
for
knows
sure.
we love him.
What
we
he
do
brings
love
is
him a
more-
lot.
We appreciate what he brings.
Yeah, and
He brings
I mean,
a lot more than food.
John's been coming, I think it's like 3 years almost, to those back at Vandu. Every Sunday he comes with some hot food, and he's still doing that. He's been doing that for the 9 months
He's a
since
nice
we
guy. Excellent
stopped
nice
doing
guy.
it at Vandu and came here. But now he's here other times as well, and now he's stepping it up because Mary's gone and we don't have her baking for us.
Yeah.
So John has provided us with a whole bunch of these little cupcakes, and they're what, 70?
75 million.
75, he said.
75 mil, yeah, because
Yeah.
Apparently some people greened out from his brownies.
Yeah, they have.
well, I
That's
told.
not something to laugh at. That's
No, it's
shitty.
not.
Well, you know,
Because
need
like
to
Chris,
warn people.
our Chris, well, we did, but you know, Chris that works here, his sister, greened out on
Yeah.
a brownie, even though
told us
she
today.
eats lots of edibles. She makes her own edibles. She was not expecting to green out on that.
All right, so we have to make sure we warn people about
Yeah.
those. And typically
she
we
did
give
not
out.
have a fun night, but
I
then
tell
she
people.
passed out for 12 hours and was fine the next day. But yeah, it's not fun in the moment when you've
No.
had too much, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not.
Yeah, it's
I've
true.
greened out once myself. It was not pleasant. I puked my guts out.
Your
I
stomach's
didn't
not
like it.
feeling so good.
Yeah, I've had 2 occasions in my life too, and it's not fun. You don't want to do it again.
No.
Like I passed out too. On Sunday after the brownies when I got home. I got a
When
good
you
nap.
wake up,
I got a
you're-
good sleep.
When you have the nap,
I
you
needed
wake
it
up,
though.
you're
I
okay.
loved that sleep. It was great.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to give people the option now. You know, do you want the cookie that's Mike's cookies have 30 milligrams? They're really,
right now I
really
don't
healthy
have
and
A lot of
wholesome
people like
cookies.
those cookies.
And
They're
so we
very
give
good.
those out to people that can't be part of our program that
Yeah.
need a cookie.
Yeah.
And they're 30 milligrams, so they're that's tolerable for just about anybody, especially if you have that
Newcomer.
problem
We got a
going
lot
on.
of newcomers.
But 75, that's getting up there.
cute little thing.
Yeah, and so
I said big things can come in small packages.
yeah,
Don't
so we're
make
gonna have
any
to make
appointment-
sure we
Yeah.
tell people what the differences are and let them
Watch your
choose.
surroundings where you are when you take that.
Most people won't do it
Well, because
twice.
some people say they get really high on the 30 milligram
Sure
cookies.
they do. They
So
love
I'm like,
them.
yeah, maybe cut that brownie into 4 little pieces.
Yeah, exactly. But high dose is really important. As far as the regular marketplace goes, I mean,
It all depends per person, right? There are
Yeah.
people that a low dose is enough for them.
Yeah.
And there's
But-
other people that need really high doses.
and that's why it's important that you have the high doses.
Well,
Is because
exactly.
there's
There
a lot of
needs
people
to be
that
both options, not
Exactly.
only
A lot of
low
people
dose,
that have
not
gain out
only
there.
high dose. There
Yeah.
needs to be both.
well, only high dose you could just take little bits, right?
Sure you can. Yeah.
But there needs to be low dose as well. We have the balls, the gummy balls. They're only 5 milligrams
Yeah.
each.
I think that would be our lowest dose
Yeah.
thing.
I think you got it.
Well, other than you can cut it in half. Everything we have, you can cut in half. So,
250.
but so that is the only real downside that's there with respect to cannabis in the form of high dose edibles is that you can eat too much, and it can be very uncomfortable, and you won't want to do that again. And so it is important that people be able to understand what the power is of the particular edible that they have. So there should be some standardization with respect to
It's
the
different than
manufacture
smoking a
of
joint.
Well, that's the
of
only thing I
edibles.
will agree with the government on is that packaging needs to clearly state doses and
Yeah, when it comes to
all that
edibles,
kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
well,
people know
Smoking
what they're
joints is
getting.
different than
And,
doing edibles. So.
And then when it comes to concentrates, there's a role for education there in that you can green out.
Sure
You can like basically keel right over
seen it. I've
from
seen it.
having too strong a dab if you're not used to dabbing or you're outside of your regular dose
I've seen it
range.
at Van Duel when we
And so
stand them
it's
out.
important that at a retail point of sale that information is properly communicated. It can just be a warning on the label or whatever. Concentrates, can cause green out or whatever. So there is those
much
regulations. That would be a good idea to have those. I'm in
Well,
favor
you have to tell
of
them.
good regulations.
Too much.
problem is the government doesn't actually know anything about weed. That's
Well, the
why there's so
problem
many
is-
issues with how things were
People like high dose, but then they
legalized.
take too much and they green out, right?
The
They
problem
think
is,
they like I
They
just.
don't tell you excessive drinking may lead to blindness or death.
Sure, well, they tell you that alcohol causes all kinds of problems, but they have no problem selling it to you.
well, they don't put it on the label as much as they probably should.
No, they
with
don't.
respect
Yeah,
to
no, it
alcohol.
doesn't say anything on the label. There's maybe ads in the store saying alcohol and pregnancy don't mix, those kind of ads.
Yep.
But, there's
That's
one
what
or
they
two
do.
maybe in the store, that's it. Otherwise, they always make alcohol look like
gotta
fun.
be
Do you not see all the
responsible.
commercials like, oh, you want to look cool? Here, drink this one. Like,
Oh,
you want to
big
have
time.
the party life? Drink this one.
Responsibility.
It's-
Absolutely. If only cannabis could be treated equally to the way alcohol is treated,
right?
even though cannabis does not bring with it all of those inherent problems that we end up with alcohol
I
consumption.
would much rather deal with a stoner than a
So,
drunk.
the reality is that there should be a lot less regulation and restriction on cannabis than
There should
on
be a lot more on
alcohol.
alcohol. Alcohol
But,
causes death.
But how
Cannabis does not.
how can they justify, the slack regulations on alcohol
'Cause they don't
and,
think
and,
logically,
and then
that's
the
how they
strong ones
justify it.
on cannabis, and not only that, the commercial tobacco. Where's all the
Oh yeah, that
restrictions
kills people
about?
too, but that's okay, right? They don't care. As long as they're
for
making
sale
money,
in
they
the-
don't give a shit.
They sell that shit in grocery stores.
Well, like the cost of a pack of cigarettes now is like what, $15 or something for a pack of smokes. I gave up when they hit $10 a pack. I went to the native smokes, but like the majority of that is taxes.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
majority of that price is taxes that goes to the government. So yeah, they have no problem profiting on death.
Six pack is $15.
They're all
Six
for
pack
that.
beer.
The actual cost of putting a little bit of whatever they call tobacco into those paper cylinders, a little filter on the end, and then in the fancy plastic with the picture, the color
Oh no,
on it.
now there's no pictures anymore.
You know?
Now it's just plain packaging with the name brand on it. That's it. They figure that solves the problem somehow.
Oh really? There's no more branding out there?
Nope.
I'm not a smoker, so I don't know what's going on.
No
All
more
I know is
branding.
that if we
But
had
even still, like vapes are still all over the place too. Like lots of the young
Yeah,
kids
they
are
were.
telling us that they're gonna be switching to vapes. I'm like, really? No, that's not any better for you either. Don't. No, just.
No, you don't.
Like I started when I was young. I started smoking cigarettes when I was
Andrew,
15 or 16.
what?
it's for you.
I started at 10, as many viewers will know.
You were lucky enough to quit young.
Yep.
I
I
was
quit.
not.
I would quit when I was
Yeah,
13.
anyway, I'm getting
I
there.
quit when I was 2 years younger than you started, and I had smoked for 3 years. So just because of peer pressure, my rebellious attitude towards my parents.
Oh, I started when I was living in a group home, so yeah, I guess it was kind of to fit in and whatnot.
It was the
And it
cool
was a
thing to
stressful
do.
environment, so.
There was a lot of bullies around. Yeah, I grew up in East Vancouver actually, and went to school here. And there was a lot of the tough kids. They all smoked cigarettes.
I hung
So-
out with the older kids, the European kids.
I did too. I had older friends as well. Because I wasn't that big, I guess. I don't know. And it was just a way to fit in. And are you? You can't, like, 5 minutes? Okay, well, okay. All right, he's giving me the thumbs up. Jerry Martin's leaving the neighborhood. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, what are you doing, you crazy girl? And so, yeah.
Nothing, I don't know.
It's a crazy world. You got business to do.
How's it
Not
going?
business. That's just George. But this is what goes on in the reefer van out here on the curbside in downtown Eastside Vancouver.
Ooh, and I did actually have a cool story.
It's a beautiful day. We enjoy what we do.
You have a cool story you want to tell? Well, you got to do
Beautiful day.
that first, I guess.
There you go.
We are just here in limbo awaiting government approval to do what we're doing. We just need their permission. Even though we for 4 years have been demonstrating just how well this works for people, how much it's needed in the community, how safe and effective it is. Even with that kind of track record and all the people in the neighborhood, including the top experts in the medical field that support what we're doing, with all of that, we're still now moving into our 7th month of waiting for Health Canada to approve us. And by the way, even though our lawyer does inform them that we're continuing to do what we're doing here, for their intents and purposes, we're not. And what they think is that we're just running the back door for people on the program. We're not allowing other people to get low barrier access. But that would be insanely criminal as well. People rely on us, not just the ones that are willing to be part of a program, but almost more importantly, those people that for personal reasons can't identify themselves as such and couldn't be part of such a program. So we're providing an extremely much needed service here, and we've been demonstrating for 4 years just how valuable it is to the community and how safe and effective it is to the community. And so yeah, you say you had an interesting story of the day.
Yes, actually. When I went to Tim Hortons today for the staff to get us all coffee, I saw a gentleman that used to come to the shop, and I think to the Van Du lineup. And he said, hey, and he apologized that he can't come here anymore. He's living at Harbor Light, where they are not allowed to smoke cannabis. They do get piss tested. They will go right back to jail if they get test positive for it. And, you know, like, that makes me sad and, like, mad for them. Like, they should be encouraged to smoke weed and keep them off the other shit. Yeah. You know, like, it's just ridiculous.
They should be allowed, for sure.
But he said, you know, like, his son still comes here, and they both think we're just wonderful people, and they love that we're here, and whether he can participate or not, you know, they're happy to have us here. It's like, we have a lot of members, actually, that live there that should not be using, apparently. Or there was, and I mentioned, actually, the older gentleman that's in his, like, 60s that had to get a prescription for cannabis and came here so excited with his prescription that says maximum 1 gram a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
And it made me like sad that he was so excited about that. I was like, that's all you're allowed? Like 1 gram a day? Like, Jesus Christ, that's something. I guess that's a start, but like, my goodness.
That's a big start.
He has to go through all the hoops of getting a stupid prescription, and it's only for 1 gram a day
Apparently
for 6 months.
Apparently we are all young, innocent children, and the doctors are the moms and dads.
Oh, but you can have alcohol, you can have pills that'll get you addicted.
Yeah, I don't get that.
You.
Okay, now you got me, because you're right. It doesn't make any sense. It must be making money for somebody, because it's not making any sense. Right. And almost always, if it's not making sense, it's making money for somebody.
Well, especially, like, yeah, fine, there's government weed now too, but there's no coverage. So even though he's prescribed weed, it's not like he can take that to the government dispensary and they're going to give him a free gram that costs $30.
Like if he had that for opioids or some other toxic synthetic pharmaceutical
you know how much that
drug,
stuff gets sold at the corner over
he could just go to a pharmacy and they would give him the gram.
Sure they would.
Or whatever it was.
You know, the amount of money that is circulating just because of pharmaceuticals at Main and Hastings.
Huge.
You know how many people are there all day selling their pills?
Yep.
Like,
as soon as they get their prescription, they come to the corner and start to sell it. You can get
there.
anything you want on the corner of Main and Hastings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's easy to get all of those things.
Yeah.
You can hang around, whatever drug you want, pretty much. If you hang around for 10 or 15 minutes at Main and Hastings, you're going to have that person with that drug come and ask you if you want that, along with all the other people that have the other drugs.
Yeah, but these doctors are writing the prescription out, getting paid for it, and you're going down and selling it.
Yep, there's a
you
lot
don't
of
want
that
to
going
take
on.
that because you need your real drug to get high. Or to
Well,
get what
and
you need.
I just want to give a shout out to Big Pharma. Fuck you for killing more people than you've
Sorry,
cured.
Annie Barbie.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but for killing more people than you've cured, because Big Pharma does no good, really.
So Main and
I'm sure there are
Hastings.
some things that do help people, but the majority of medications out there these days have side effects like death and
Sure they do.
addiction and just all kinds of things, heart problems, and they can cause you more problems than what you were on it to begin with.
Which seems to be part of the business model. You know, we should probably spend some time one day
it's not meant to cure
talking
you.
about
It's
the
meant
pharmaceutical
it's meant to keep you on
business
it.
plan.
Kind of like, honestly, like with hard drugs down here, they want to keep you on it. Here's a place to get high. Here's some free needles. There's even people that go around giving out like tested free clean drugs too now.
Our provincial health authorities last week said that
cannabis,
they were lukewarm on cannabis as a harm reduction tool, that there needed to be more investigation into that, but there was some evidence that perhaps it could be used as a harm reduction tool, but that their primary focus was on pharmaceutical alternatives to the street drugs and opioids that are
pharmaceutical
being used here.
alternative to addiction. So please be addicted to the pharmaceuticals instead of that.
Yeah, that is the corrupt solution that's being offered here. The people on the street know it. Van Du knows it. That this is just another big money grab. The motivation is not to help people get off of the drugs. The motivation is to make money off of those people, take that money out of the street dealers' pockets, give them a safe supply, but continue to get money out of these poor people on a daily basis to sustain a habit that they have because they can't get out of addiction because of withdrawal. It's very immoral. It's a huge story that's going to be breaking over the next little while here in our world because the truth is coming out about it. They can't ignore it. It's not going to go away. And the truth will come out that our medical industry, the industrial medical complex, if you will, has maintained this policy of using these opioids because they're addictive, and then profiting off the sale of them.
But you know how many pharmacies were like actually paying people to get their methadone prescriptions filled at certain pharmacies? They would actually drive down here, pick people up, take them out to their pharmacies in like New West or Surrey or wherever else, and like pay them to fill their script there.
It's big money.
It's a huge money
come
industry.
down
It's
here.
insane.
And we can be
It's
the
ridiculous.
methadone pharmacy right here.
It's a huge money and a huge
We'll
death
help them
industry.
get off.
That's all it is.
Because if you
It's
go,
money and
some
death.
people are addicted to that methadone now, and that's silly. You're already addicted to one drug, and you're getting off it, and then you get addicted to another.
But the idea was that the one was going to be given to you by government, and therefore you weren't going to be a criminal, and you weren't going to be.
Yeah, but apparently methadone's even harder to get off of than heroin. So
and that's the problem. Is methadone
it?
is not a nicer opioid than is heroin, and so it's not the right solution. I don't care if it's available as a solution. That's fine. Although I'm not a fan of using taxpayer dollars to provide it. Depending on what it is. Certainly not if you're not going to be allowing cannabis high-dose edibles as an option. It has to be an option for people. It has to be easily available to people. There needs to be community cannabis stores readily available, easily accessible, with low barriers to people to get good quality high-dose edibles, high-dose concentrates, high-quality concentrates, and flowers, and everything else in between.
A friend of Mackenzie's actually said that they feel guilty coming here and getting cheap prices because they think it's supposed to be for the people who can't afford more. And it's like, well, no. Like the whole
it's
point
based on
is
volume.
that, exactly. Yeah. Everybody should have access to these prices. Sure, the whole point is that we want to change the game. Like, no, weed should cost $10 or $15 a gram.
Not at all.
Everything should be affordable for everyone.
It can cost $10 or $15 a gram. That's fine. They can have that if they want. But there needs to be way cheaper alternatives for people, and that's out of reach for people that are daily users, medical users, people that are struggling on a budget. Out of reach for them. It's not moral.
We're famous in the neighborhood for the $1 joints and the $1 weed.
Yeah,
we have people that come like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard you guys have $1 joints. I'm like, yeah. Like, we got $1 weed too.
I've had two guys that were talking about it.
And we're doing our best to sustain that, and that should be sustained.
We're trying, yeah. But that's the problem, is the way the game is right now. That's a hard price to get, right? That's a hard thing to get.
I think that what has to happen before we get our license is that we have to have some conversations with Health Canada. And I'm sure that they're going to want these conversations, although I don't think they want any part of what we're doing here because there's no money to be made in it for Health Canada or any of the people that they're supporting. But they really do seem to be supporting all of these different industries that have popped up with respect to supplying cannabis to people. And there is no need for us to put expensive, immoral packaging on, to involve that in what we're doing here, especially if there's going to be a cost involved, because that cost would have to be passed on to the people that we're helping. And these people can't afford to pay. We have people come here. We have a 5-gram limit on the $1 weed to try to make sure that it's available every day for the people that need it. And they can come back, every day if they want it, but, one 5-gram purchase a day of that. And we have many people that come here and they want 1 gram or they want 2 grams because they only have $1 or $2. And
probably
so,
our biggest number actually is like 2 to 3 grams.
yeah, most of what we do here is just small numbers for people because, that's what they can afford. And that's the ones that are important to us. And it's not the ones that are important to the government. In fact, the government stores, like I say, it's so expensive for one small amount. And then there's all the packaging added onto that and all the taxes that make that so expensive that that's not what we're doing here. That can't be done here. And there's no need for government to make money on what we're doing here, on any level of what we're doing here. Except I will pay personal taxes if I start making money on this. If I start making money, it's because we've got a large volume of sales going on, because this business model is based on that. And with that, if we're allowed to do what we can do in the store, we will have a proper volume of sales. We will make some money. I'm more than happy to pay my fair share of taxes on all of that, but I'm not willing to pass taxation on to the people that we're trying to help, because the whole point of this is that there are people that can't afford it, that don't have resources, that are sick, they're suffering, they need our help. And they're the ones the government should be looking out for. They don't need to look out for the rich people that are worried about whether they can make, $4,000 on a pound of weed or not. Our government, on our behalf, needs to look after the people that are having a hard time looking after themselves. In many and most cases, the people that are struggling with poverty and drug addiction and all the rest of it are there because of circumstance, things that happened to them, things that could have happened to anybody. And they need to have options. That's all we're asking, is allow these people to have options. Allow them to have cannabis as an option, as an affordable option for those that need to use it daily, those that need to use the high dose and those that need to use the strong, good quality cannabis.
The people that are coming here are so happy to be here. They love the prices and they're so happy to be here that they say thanks for what you're doing. It's great. I get somewhere I can afford to go.
And we need that everywhere. We need that in every community across Canada. All right,
and
we're going to wrap this up for another episode of the THC show. My condolences to the family of Alan Sayers and to all of his friends and those of us that knew him. And his life will obviously from here go on a long way because of all of the amazing art that he's put into our lives and into this community that has traveled far and far around the world. And Alan was a brilliant fellow, and we lost him to fentanyl of all things. None of us or any of his close friends knew that there was anything going on with him that would result in that, and that can be true for anybody. So love your friends, love your family, be kind to everybody. Make sure everybody knows that there's support and there's options for people if they're in need of them. Right now it's through us and through the underground marketplace, and hopefully before too long it'll be readily available in storefronts for people as well. But high-dose cannabis edibles really are an option for people, and I wish that was widely known, so we can at least do that. The other things we can do is contact our government officials and let them know that there's an epidemic going on besides the pandemic, and that there are things that can be done about it, and one of them is to get out of the way of the community groups that want to supply cannabis as an option for people. That has to happen, and the more encouragement we give our public servants and those people in those positions of power and influence, the more chance we have of achieving that. It's long overdue. It's 100% needed. Has to happen eventually. The quicker the better. So we can do something to nudge the health minister, the Health Canada, your local politicians, your local police, even anybody, absolutely the media, anybody that you think can help. Maybe you can find some way to get them to do something, to recognize that there's a big issue here, there is something good that can be done for it, and to get behind this healing wave that should be sweeping over the nation before too much longer, if the government would just give us permission to do that, or at least maybe get out of the way, but I think we need that permission. Alan, we're going to miss you along with so many other recent departures from here, and I think that for those who knew Alan and want to share in some social distant gathering, there is going to be something coming up, I think a week from Monday, near where he lived, which is I think by the train station at Terminal in Maine, but I don't have any details on that. We'll get them to you as quick as we can. And in the meantime, like I say, life is brief and short for all of us or any of us, and appreciate the people in your life that you like, and let them know that. Be kind to them, be kind to yourself. make the world a better place and have as much fun as you can doing it.
Oh, dude, I finally got caught up on